So we've got this super slick, very dynamic procedure that will allow our users to import text files into Excel. It allows them to go grab a specific text file, to grab multiple text files, and import that data into Excel. But let's get back into the procedure for a moment. I want to show you something here that we need to fix. We want to make this more dynamic, open up the doorways even more for our users. And you may already realize this already, but let's take a look at it. So let's get back into the Visual Basic Editor. I'm going to run the shortcut key of Alt F11 on my keyboard. There's my procedure. All right. Now, right now, we're using this open files variable to get access to the application get open file name method. This opens up the browse window for our users. And we are potentially allowing users to select multiple files. So they grab multiple files, multiple text files, and this variable open files, which is of array type, now contains a single file or multiple files. But our code, this line right here, is only getting access and opening up the first file in the collection. That's it, one file. But what if they choose multiple files? How am I going to be able to open up all the files one at a time, copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste? How am I going to get that to repeat? I need to repeat all of this content right here multiple times. How do you get something to repeat? We talked about this earlier lecture. We're going to create a loop. And I'm going to create a for loop. Now, before I create my for loop, I'm going to create a variable that's going to act as the iterating value, right, for this for loop. And I'll just call it I. It's going to be of type integer or a numeric value. So now let's start to create the loop. So I'm going to create a for loop, and I'll say for I equals 1 to, we want it to start at 1 because our array is a 1 based array. Its first value is in the 1 position, or the first position. But how many times do we want it to run? Right? Do I want it to run 5 times or 10 times or 100 times or 2 times? Well, I don't know. I mean, the users are picking how many values, how many text files? I don't know. Right? I can't just put a 5 in there because what if they choose 6? What if they don't choose 5? What if they choose 3? Right? We need to make this dynamic. I need some way to figure out how many text files the user chose. Okay, well, think about this. You ever use the count A function? Count A. Count all non-blank cells. It's an Excel function you can use in your worksheets. Well, we're going to use the same function here. We're going to say, I want you to continue to loop for I equals 1 to, and we're going to get back into the application object, Excel. We're going to go back to Excel, and we're going to get to the count A function. I'm going to open up a parentheses here. Count A wants a range of cells that it's going to count. But in this case, we're going to count the contents of the variable called open files. There's my loop. So I want you to loop for I equals 1 to however many files the user chose. We're going to count them. Count all of them in there, right? Open files. Now let's just clean up my code here. I'm going to tab this stuff over. So that's going to be a part of my loop. And down here at the bottom, we'll say a next I. All right, there's my loop. So for I equals 1 to the application count A of open files, count all of the files in this array called open files, and that's how many times you're going to loop. Now looking at this line here, setting the text file to the active file. Right now it's only choosing 1, right? The one at the first position. But I want this to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to however many the user chose, right? So here, rather than 1, which is static, it's never going to change, every time our loop runs, there's a value that changes. It's I. The first time the loop runs, it's equal to 1. It does all of its stuff, then it goes to the next I, which becomes 2, because it's going through the count of all the open files. The next time it does its stuff, then it goes back to the loop again, and it becomes 3, and so on. So I'm going to change this from 1 to I. So now we're starting to create something even more dynamic here, right? We're using a loop to get it to run multiple times. And how do we know how many times to run? Well, we're creating this dynamic count based on how many text files did the user choose. We're counting the open files array. And then we're going to tell it to do it on the first one, and the second one, the third one, the fourth one, iterating through this I value. All right, let's try this out. This is getting exciting. More and more dynamic, right? Speeding up, becoming more efficient. Let's get rid of this window. All right, let's insert a new worksheet here. All right, so I'm going to go back to view, into macros, view macros. Now there's actually more that we need to do with this, but let's see what we get so far. I'm going to go ahead and run my import text file. Opens up my browse window. I'm going to grab multiple because it allows me to do that. I'll hold down my shift key here. Actually, I'm going to check them here inside of my operating system. Let's just check multiple of those. I got how many? 1, 2, 3, 4 of them selected. Now April, February, March, and November. I'm going to go ahead and hit open. All right, what are we on? There's April. I'm going to say no to the clipboard. Nope, what are we on now? February, no to the clipboard. What are we on? Oh, there's data here already. Do I want to replace it? What's happening here? Oh, well, it's only pasting it on the one sheet. It's doing multiple, right? Let's go ahead and say yes, I'll replace it. That's fine. Now here's March. Let's close that. All right, and let's see. There's November. That's the fourth one, right? And there's my data. Okay, but all I'm seeing is November and April because it's just pasting right over the top of what I already had there. We need to add some more of this macro. We need to do a little bit more here. Okay? But get to this point first. Open up the Visual Basic Editor. Let me open that back up here again. I'll hit the Alt F11 key. And let's get that loop going. Let's get that working. Okay? Get that loop to go over and over again. Count the number of open files. And let's iterate through that I value. Make sure you change that. It used to be 1, right? Let's get it to the I. So it'll always pick up on the next file within the open files array that we've created. But now we need to fix something. And we'll take a look at that next. But get to this point, and then we'll carry on.